Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Brothers Grimdark. It's Night Lord's time again, and we're going to be talking about Warp Talons today. I do like me a Warp Talon. They feel like they're very much in line with what Night Lords are all about. You got your jump packs, you got your lightning claws. What more can you ask for? Having a 5-up invul on that is really nice too. So Warp Talons were actually the very first unit I painted for my Night Lords, so they have a bit of a special place in my heart. Did a unit of 5, I said the very first thing I did. So that was one of my first sort of test models almost for the Night Lords, getting the paint scheme down and things like that. And I've since expanded that and got another 5 of them. So why do I like Warp Talons? One, again, they're very sort of thematic. I feel like anything with a jump pack and a lightning claw is goodness. I just love that in general, but it's also very Night Lordsy. 2, they've gotten so much better in the new codex. It's weird that they're not called lightning claws anymore, or whatever the demon talony thing is, but it's just like a lightning claw. They have a lot of attacks. They are pretty simple in what they do, but they just absolutely plow through attacks, and you're getting your rerolls to wound. So they're pretty good at going through quite a lot of units. Even 5 of them, you're getting a lot of attacks out of them. And with Night Lords, they're actually even better in some senses, because there's a bunch of really, really useful stratagems you can potentially use them with. So one of them, it allows you to deep strike on turn 1. That's cool. It costs 2 CP to do it on Warp Talons, unfortunately, because they're demonkin. But even so, if you really want to do that and outflank somebody, get a first turn charge off potentially, that's a very powerful thing to be able to do. So that's fantastic. They also have a rule where you can do mortal wounds with Vicious Descent as you charge. So another way to get even more output from them, and I think that one's only 1 CP to do that. You can also fall back charge with them, which is handy if you think they're going to get tied up with something, which is again really good for one of those sort of more vanguard units. And you can prevent things from falling back from you if you don't want them to run away. So again, you can get that first turn deep strike in, charge something that you don't want to shoot at you, and just prevent it from falling back. So really quite flexible in the things that they can do. They're very, very powerful. One of the issues I've had running them so far a little bit is I find they tend to die quite quickly. Even with that 5-up invul save, I find that running 5 of them in the games I've played, at least so far, they get to do something once and then they're just kind of deleted. They're still a relatively fragile unit. So I run a couple of games with them in 2 units of 5. I am starting to experiment a little bit with running a unit of 10 of them. 1, to make them a little bit more durable. 2, that stratagem, I think, where you do mortal wounds on the way in is actually quite good when you've got 10 of them. You're just doubling your chances to get that off. And they really should kill just about anything they touch when you've got 10 of them. That is a lot of attacks going out there. Again, they're just lightning claws, only strength 4, but you're re-rolling all your wounds, which is great. So they're fairly potent. They will go through most infantry, and yeah, I think last game they took out a Trigon in 1 turn of combat, and he's got quite a chunky bit of wounds on him. So they're pretty powerful, but I think you have to be a little bit careful with them sometimes, because if you leave them exposed, they'll go down. But that's kind of what I've got with them so far. I've said I've got 2 units of 5. In terms of alternatives, one of my slight frustrations with Night Lords right now is I think that their base mechanic, where you get +1 to your wound rolls, is a great mechanic, but it only goes off when you're attacking something that's leadership 5 or they're at half strength. And I find that that's actually much harder to get off than I was expecting it to be. Against other Marines, they're all leadership 8, so even with that -2 reduction you get with Night Lords, it's not enough to get that +1 to wound. Even against things like Tyranids, if you're going up against Warriors or Zoanthropes or any of their HQs, things like that, they're all high leadership. Eldari are generally high leadership. So it's actually a little tricky to kind of, I find, to get that sometimes. So one thing I'm potentially looking at as an alternative to the Warp Talons are Raptors. Obviously, they're not quite as potent with their damage output, but they cause fear, and it's an aura. So you can still use a lot of the same stratagems, which are really, really good for the Warp Talons, but you can also have them a little bit more as a support unit, where they can sort of bounce around the table just causing this 6-inch fear aura, and that gets you another -1 to leadership. So at that point, your Night Lords are doing leadership -3, not just -2. Which means Marines, all that stuff around that leadership 8 kind of bracket now suddenly you're getting +1 to wound against them. So I'm tempted to try that at some point. I haven't got those painted up yet, but I'm curious to see how those match up versus the Warp Talons. I think the Warp Talons in general are very good, but I think for Night Lords, the Raptors, just the base Raptors might actually be a little bit more useful. Another advantage of the Raptors is that stratagem that allows you to do first turn Deep Strike. I only cost 1 CP for them because they're not Demonkin. So you can actually be a little bit more flexible with them potentially. So anyway, I'm curious about that. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear kind of the Raptors versus Warp Talons discussion. And I expect it does vary a little bit per legion or what you're trying to accomplish with them. As I said, a unit of 10 Warp Talons is nothing to sniff at. They will tear through stuff. So they're very powerful. But it is a bit of a trade-off, and you do have to be a little bit careful about them getting exposed and countercharged or shot at, because they do just fall. The 5-up invul's nice, but anyway, that's, yeah, apples and oranges a little bit, but yes, very curious what you think. Let me know what you're doing, if you think either of the units are good or not good, which ones you think pair well with Night Lords, any other sneaky combos you've kind of thought of, or useful things you can do with them. But yeah, that's it for me today. Expect to see lots more jump pack units coming from my Night Lords soon. But that's what I've got at the moment, and we'll see them on the tabletop sometime soon as well. If you haven't seen any of our battle reports, they're in every time I play with Night Lords, so you'll see them out there. But yeah, that's it for today. Have a good one, and we will be back again soon with another episode of the Brothers Grimdark.